Well, now world powers are gathering in Berlin for a new push to secure a lasting peace deal in Libya. In these talks, which are led by Germany and the United States, leaders will be discussing their pledges to withdraw foreign fighters from the North African country. They also want to ensure the war-torn state stays on track toward its December general elections. Libya has been unstable since a NATO-backed uprising toppled longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. The oil-rich country was then divided between a UN-supported government in the capital and rival authorities based in the country's east before a transitional government took power earlier this year. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said that many challenges still lie ahead in the pursuit for a stable Libya.
This is the man, Muammar Gaddafi, whose brutal reign kept Libya together for 40 years. In 2011, protests against his rule quickly grew into a countrywide rebellion. In September 2011, Gaddafi was captured and killed by a militia group. The country soon fell into chaos. Armed groups that had been active against his regime refused to disband, and regional rivalries grew. Elections failed to bring the country together, and soon rival governments were set up in the western and eastern parts of the country. The General National Accord in Tripoli was recognized by many Western countries, led by Fayez al-Sarraj. But it had little power over much of the country. The rival government in Tobruk in the east was allied with a faction called Libyan National Army, led by strongman Khalifa Haftar. The two sides fought and attended multiple peace conferences in Europe and continued to fight. Meanwhile, people smugglers took advantage of the lawlessness to use Libya as a transit route, bringing migrants and refugees to Libya's Mediterranean coast. The European Union cut deals with Libyan forces to try to keep migrants back, leaving hundreds of thousands stranded in the country. In January 2020, the two warring sides came to Berlin along with an array of international leaders to try to come to an agreement and end foreign involvement. Finally, in October 2020, the warring sides agreed to a ceasefire in all areas of Libya. A UN resolution helped stabilize the conflict by making the Berlin Agreement legally binding for its members on the international level. All in all, this led to the formation of an interim unity government that's set to stay in place until elections planned in December of this year.
And for more on that, let's bring in now Roderich Kiesewetter. He is a member of the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd just like to begin by asking you about what we heard about there in that piece, one of the goals being to secure elections in December. How realistic are you seeing that, given the complications on the ground right now?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We need to be very sober. Whether the election might take place or not is not clear so far, because there are really different interests. However, it is so important that the German government is continuing its process of the Berlin talks. And that means that we now bind in the new transitional government of Libya, which is taking part first time. And several very important foreign ministers are present, like Foreign Minister Blinken, the foreign minister of Libya, but also from some European states and others. So I believe that there is a good sign to the Libyan population. And second, we need to press those countries who offer mercenaries, military mercenaries to Libya. We need to keep the pressure and try to build up functioning state structures guaranteeing security. If this will be the case, then elections might take place.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about those foreign fighters that you just mentioned there, because the UN warned recently that progress has been stalled, that is actually a prerequisite also for elections, the removal of those foreign fighters from the country. Some 20,000 of them are in the country, we understand, by recent estimates, supported by Russia, Turkey, and others. How likely do you see a meaningful agreement to make progress on that front?
Well, the German government is holding background talks with those countries who are supporting foreign fighters. But second, we could also find an arrangement where these mercenaries become part of the security structure controlled by United Nations, for example, as long as the land-owned security structures are not yet functioning. Second, I believe that on the long term, we need the presence of international engagement, for example, of the European Union or of the African Union. I believe we should really engage the key leaders of the African Union that they take over responsibility, and this could be supported by the European Union under the umbrella of the United Nations. This would be a way out, which will guarantee security on the one side, but also needs acceptance by the Libyan population. And if the African Union is owning the process, this would be really a good progress.
Okay, so that would be one potential approach there. In the meantime, I'd like to ask you about civilians in all of this, because the UN is estimating some 1.3 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in the country. To what extent is improving the situation for the Libyan people themselves also on the agenda right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Libyan population is really under pressure, but on the other side, we have a split of the national bank, we have a split of the national petrol system, but on the other side, the money is guaranteed, so there is a lot of own earned capital inside the country, which is also distributed to the families. Nevertheless, we have a strong need for engagement also of the United Nations regarding the refugees, the migrants, who are sometimes kept as hostages in prisons or in kind of camps. And there we need an international control and access for the United Nations. Also, the European Union could take over responsibility. So the Libyan population is not the problem. It's the migrants, it's those who are unemployed migrants, and it's the question how to take care of those who are exploited by those who are trafficking the people.
Roderich, Kiesewetter, thank you so much for joining us against this backdrop of world powers gathering in Berlin for a new push to secure a lasting peace deal in Libya. As we mentioned, you're a member of the German Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thanks for your time.